I got a couple of songwriting Grammys, and I'm proud of those for sure. But I think the thing I'm mostly proud of is that, especially lately, I'm starting to write what I think, what I feel, which is kind of how I started. Wilson Pickett was one of my favorites. I loved his albums. But there wasn't a lyric on there that wasn't baloney. And then I loved the lyrics of Bob Dylan and the Beatles and these guys that were starting to really look at writing about real stuff. But I don't really particularly like the music. Why don't I take the music from this and the lyrics from this and put them together? So I was probably, at least in the San Francisco scene, I was the first guy to try to do that.
If it didn't rhyme when your poetry's stolen, you know then you're all by yourself.
The day after Terry Kath died, I got a call from these guys that were involved in my first album, which was Irving Azoff and Howard Kaufman. They were the managers, so they called me after Terry passed away and says, hey man, there's an opening here, this may be a good gig for you. And I said, I play guitar, but not all night. That's not my forte. I mean, I can play a solo, one. After that, I'm just playing that solo over and over again, at least at that time. And so I kind of passed on the gig, passed it to a friend of mine, and he got it, sort of got it right up until Donnie Dacus walked in knowing all the material backwards and forward. So he was really prepared. And then later on, I was doing a thing, a friend of mine, Angelo, I had done his album at Fantasy Records in Berkeley. Years before, he called me and said, can I ask you to come in and do background vocals? Danny Seraphine from Chicago is producing it. At the time I was doing Rittenhour's record, we were doing Is It You, which was another song I wrote and sang background on. And I said, I was kind of jiving him. I said, well, what's the money? He said, well, I just need you to do it for free. Which I'm into, even to this day. If it feels like something that needs to be done, I'm there, you know. But it was really funny. I was going, man, I got a really bad cold. I ain't singing at all, you know. And he says, you know, Pete said the same thing. I said, who's Pete? He said, Peter Cetera, but he's coming. I said, well, I'll get over the cold real quick. I'd love to sing with Peter Cetera. We got in there and we worked out some parts for one of these things and went to the microphone and started singing together. And the guys in the booth, John Stronach was the engineer and Danny Seraphine was the producer. Their jaw was on the floor. Whoa, this is working. These guys sound great together. And that was kind of the beginning of the germ of that got it going to where the next thing you know, I'm getting a phone call.
Something happened along the way. Yesterday was
I kind of fell into that sort of wrecking crew of backgrounds. And, you know, we must have done 300-400 gigs a year. Sometimes it'd be 3 a day. And you walk in, and so you say, hey man, you want me to send you cassettes so you know the song when you come in? I said, no, we'll just eyeball it when we do it. Walk in and listen to it and go, hey, this would be a good spot for backs, you know, put backing vocals on. So, and Leon was like that. He was one of the cats. I mean, when I was 15, I was in San Francisco, and a band from LA had put together this song, sent him up. They needed a singer for a Levi's commercial. And I think Leon and Glenn were both on that commercial. So, I mean, aside from what Leon's really known for, I bet you his mailbox money was amazing from stuff that people don't even know he did. And that's the way sessions work. I know the Cats during when I moved to LA, there was like a sort of a whole new handful of really great musicians going on. You know, Steely Dan kind of opened the way to like, let's get more musical. Let's put a little education onto this pop rock. And boy, I just fell right into the middle of it. I was really fortunate to get a lot of work with all these people from Boz Scaggs all the way down the line, you know.
Deep inside we knew this love was true for a while.
I always thought the best producers were the arrangers. Keith Olsen actually was doing a Sons album, and he said, you need strings on a couple of these songs. There's a guy in town, great piano player, great session guy, but he's a good string arranger. I want to put him on this. So he introduced me to David, and I was instant, boom. We're gonna work together. We started writing right away. If somebody said, oh, Foster will never be a producer, he'll always just be a session piano player. Wrong-o, big fella. I wanted David to produce my record right off the bat, and the people, the management and the record company said, oh man, why? Let's get you a real good producer. You know, what, somebody who can send out for the right Chinese food? This is the guy. If he got that guy, he would be hiring this guy. Why don't we go to this guy? So I was one of the guys that kind of did that, one of the first things. Then Danny, at some point, he said, hey, do you think Foster would be a good producer for Chicago? And I went, Because I'd just done my Runaway album, my second album with David. I said, yeah, if you follow where he's going, you're going to end up with a hit. And I said, okay, I've been to your practice a lot. I've heard the songs you're writing. You're going to have to throw them all away and start over. Because that's the way David works, is you write it right now. So David started writing with Jim Pankow, started writing with Peter Cetera. That's where we got Hard to Say I'm Sorry, You're the Inspiration. Some really great songs out of those guys. He was just so good for that band, and they were in one of their slumps, you know. That band's hit numerous slumps, and somebody comes along and pulls them out. And him and Chicago had a real, you know, he didn't do it the way they wanted to do it, but the way they wanted to do it wasn't working. The way he did it was. So no matter what they say, he saved their butts pretty seriously. So, I mean, there was a point there where he was kind of angry at those guys, and I was in the band at the time, so he was just, you know, you're judged by the company you keep. He just sort of was angry at me, and we just kind of met again, probably in the last year, a year and a half, and it was sort of a tearful reunion. You know, it's, wow, good to see you. You know, I mean, all that was water under the bridge at that point of the game.
You may lose, you may win, it's the same. You can live for much more than the game.
I've gone into sessions. I remember Chicago, I'd walk into a session and you'd see everybody going, we need to have a hit. We need, and we gotta have a hit. What you wanna do is you wanna walk into a studio and hear people crank it up and everybody laughing. You know, a friend of mine said to me a long time ago, said the best records are made by a few good people. And I think that's why when Foster came in and did the Chicago record, it was a few good people. The engineer, producer, and whoever they were working with at the time, but it was never really a band thing. If the horns were playing, nobody else was there. If the rhythm section was playing, nobody else was there. And all that's fine and dandy, but there's something, that's what I loved about Keith Olsen. I mean, he'd take a band of B- players and spend some time with them and get them to really dig what they're doing and just get excited over arrangement ideas and stuff like that. The first thing to go to tape is not necessarily time and intonation. First thing to go to tape is how you feel. And if you want, we need a hit, what's going to go to tape first? Desperation. If it's like, oh, dig this, that's what goes to the tape. And I've learned that a long time ago. So man, if you're recording and you're not feeling good, turn off the machine, come back tomorrow. Get yourself feeling better. Just even to listen to it. That's why a lot of the records are out. I mean, my new album, yeah, it did okay for what it is and what's going on. It did better than okay. We really pushed it pretty hard. But it's never gonna fly, and I knew that. It kind of almost paid for itself. It wasn't because of commerce that I made the record. It was because of love for the music and wanting to express myself. You know, after a while, I mean, it was 12 years between solo albums. You know, it was probably 12 years before my last solo album that I'd made a solo album. And I just finally, Tamara actually came in and I was playing the song Living for Love. We played it last night.
What you've been isn't living for love.
And she said, what's that? I said, well, it's this little tune I'm working on. I just played it a little bit for her. And she went, oh, Bill, it's time for a solo album. We're done. Enough of this band baloney. Let's just do a solo record. It was lockdowns and COVID and everything. And I said, what am I going to do, sit here and watch diners, drive-ins, and dives all day, or am I going to go to the studio and go to work? Yeah, I do love the show. What lends something to music is to have people that love it. Not that need it, but people that love it.
If you're living for love. Ooh, yeah. Thank you much.